Hey, this is Emily at Inflatable Kayaks, and in this video we're going to have a look at the difference between the AdvancedFrame Solo Kayak and the AdvancedFrame Sport Kayak. I get asked this question all the time. There are some really important physical differences in the kayak which we're going to go through, but we're also going to look at what that really means for you in terms of, the length of trip you can do, the kayak capacity, taking dogs, taking kids, going in open water, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing you'll notice is they are very similar, okay? They're the same length, they're the same width, they kind of look like the same shape because they are the same shape, the same seat, the same soft floor, and they're generally made with the same materials. And in fact, the design is very similar. The AdvancedFrame was the original kayak that came out. The Sport was designed as a lightweight version of the AdvancedFrame. Now there's two main ways they got that weight down. The first is the cockpit. So you'll notice that the cockpit on the Sport is bigger than the cockpit on the AdvancedFrame. So of course that means less materials. There's also no inflatable coaming around the cockpit on the Sport. It's just a little foam coaming. So again, less material. So that's one way they've got weight down. Now that means a couple of things for you. First of all, it's a bit easier to get in and out of the Sport because it's got that wide open cockpit. However, you'll notice that the AdvancedFrame has this handy zipper system here with a clip. So if you're struggling to get in and out, if you've got very long legs, you can just unzip it to get in and out. So that's not a huge issue for a lot of people. But the oversized cockpit is important in terms of fitting in dogs and kids, okay? So if anyone says they've got a largish dog or they want to take a kid with them, the Sport is instinctively the first one I would look to, simply because there's space. What you can do is loosen the seat straps here. Get the seat right back in the cockpit, way back here. And then you can easily have a kid or a dog in the bow of the cockpit with you. You're a little bit more limited in what you can do with the AdvancedFrame. It's certainly not impossible to fit a kid or a small to medium dog in, but if it was something you were doing all day, every day, it might become a bit annoying. Now, the second really important thing with these cockpits is about being able to take them in open water. The AdvancedFrame Sport is a recreational kayak. It's good for flat water. It does not have an open water classification or recommendation. And one of the reasons is you can't put a spray skirt on the AdvancedFrame Sport. It's simply too big and it doesn't have enough coaming. Whereas the AdvancedFrame has been designed to work with our Packlight and our touring spray skirts. You can put them on, get a good fit, and you can go out in, cool conditions, choppy conditions, cool climates, all that sort of stuff. So in addition, there's something else that this oversized cockpit means, and that is essentially that you have less deck space. So if you were going on an overnight expedition, for example, you've got all of this deck space back here with D-rings. You do have deck space behind the AdvancedFrame Sport as well. It's just not quite as big. And then look at the front deck. You've definitely got more deck space here with plenty of bungee lacing and D-rings, more than you have on the Sport. Doesn't mean you can't do it with the Sport, doesn't mean you couldn't do a multi-day expedition. It's just something to think about, that you've got that slightly less deck space. The other way that they have reduced the weight is to do with the inner tubes. The inner tubes look exactly the same, but in fact they're not. The AdvancedFrame Kayak has two main chambers in the inner tube, one valve here and one valve just inside here, whereas the Sport just has the one valve at the back. And I'm going to take the kayaks apart and I'm going to show you how that works. So one of the main differences between the AdvancedFrame and the AdvancedFrame Sport kayaks is the number of chambers in the inner tube, which sounds funny. Everyone thinks of an inner tube as just being one ring, which it is in the Sport. So in the Sport, there is one body of air in the inner tube. But in the AdvancedFrame, there's actually what's called a baffle that runs right all the way around, and it's a vertical wall that goes top to bottom right here. You can see the seam. It goes top to bottom and it separates it into the outside chamber and the inside chamber. Okay, now the instructions are slightly interesting on this. It says something like put 50 pumps of air in, but basically what they want you to do is inflate chamber 1 until it's full of air but not under any pressure. Okay, because what's going to happen is when we inflate chamber 2 to 2 psi, that wall is flexible and it's going to push back onto chamber 1 to equalize the pressure across both chambers to 2 psi. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. So this is chamber 1, and we're just going to put some air in. Okay, so chamber 1, you can see, is now full, but it's not under any pressure, right? It's very soft. There's not like huge psh of air when I push on the valve. And you can see chamber 2 here, which is just this inner bit. It looks like it's got air in it, and that is that baffle. That's that inner wall pushing out, bulging out. And that's what I'm talking about. When we inflate this little chamber here, that's your baffle line there, you'll see that it'll push back and the pressure will equalize. So now I've inflated chamber 2 to 2 psi and it's equalized across both chambers. So if you ever take your pump with a pressure gauge and put it back into the first chamber, you'll see that the pressure has gone up to 2 psi miraculously. And it looks seamless. The kayak looks like a single inner tube, but in fact there are 2 chambers in there. Now what does that mean for you when you go paddling? Well, it means a couple of things. The first thing is, if you were to go out in open water and something was to happen to one of the chambers, it means you've got a second chamber there for safety, okay? If something happens, you are still afloat. The second critical thing that it means is that this kayak is slightly more rigid. So the AdvancedFrame Kayak has a higher capacity. It's 136 kilograms instead of 113 for the Sport, and it performs better in the higher weight ranges. So if you are between about 80 and 100 kilograms, you're going to get better performance out of the AdvancedFrame than you are out of the AdvancedFrame Sport. In the lower weight ranges, say me for example, I'm at about 55 kilograms, the difference is pretty marginal. I don't really notice the difference between the two when I'm paddling. Now you can see with the AdvancedFrame Sport kayak that there's no baffle, okay? There's no inner wall. This is just one main chamber in the inner tube. What does that mean for you? It means that the Sport is not classified for open water. So it's a kayak you want to be relatively close to the shore in, but also it means it's lighter. So the baffle adds a bit of weight, and it's one of the reasons that the Sport is 11.5 kilograms and the AdvancedFrame 16 kilograms. So if you need something lightweight or you just really like lightweight stuff, that means the Sport's a really good option for you. So there are a lot of similarities between the AdvancedFrame Sport and the AdvancedFrame Kayak, and one of them is the aluminium rib frame system. So these are the aluminium ribs. There's one for the bow and one for the stern, and they simply slot into the inner tube covers here, top and bottom, and then this whole lot goes inside the kayak. And it leaves you with this beautiful bow shape that we can see here. You can feel the rib inside, and it really cuts through the water and stops the kayak from waggling as you stroke. So you can see that the AdvancedFrame Kayak's got some advantages. You can go out in open water, put a spray skirt on, you can load up with gear. It's got a higher capacity and it has better performance per weight than the AdvancedFrame Sport. But of course, the big advantage that the Sport has is in weight. It's 11.5 kilograms for the Sport, 16 kilograms for the AdvancedFrame. And for a lot of people, that's the difference between being able to go kayaking by yourself, you know, and independently, and not, okay? The other thing to consider, although it's pretty marginal, is setup time. The Sport you can set up in 4 minutes from in the bag to on the water. The AdvancedFrame needs 5 minutes, simply because you've got to change valves for the main chamber, and then you've got to sort out these little combing bits as well that aren't on the Sport. But otherwise, very similar in terms of setup time. Look, they're both great kayaks. I love them both, and we sell heaps of both. It really probably comes down to You know, if you're taking dogs or kids, do you need the cockpit space versus are you going in open water and you want the enclosed cockpit and the weight difference? They're the key factors to consider. Now, one thing I will note for both of these kayaks is that they are both compatible with the backbone, the drop stitch floor and the Dura floor. So if you need any sort of performance enhancing, then the drop stitch floor and the backbone will do that. And if you want to take dogs or go fishing, then the Dura floor will do that for you. So if you have any questions about the difference between the AdvancedFrame Kayak and the AdvancedFrame Sport Kayak, and you're not sure which one's right for you, please don't hesitate to get in touch. This is Emily at Inflatable Kayaks.